Peace, y'all. Welcome to our 18th Artivist Talk. We're going to have a very special guest, the amazing Ras Bad, who is an artist, also an amazing person I met through arts organization they work with called The Edge, and we're excited. I'm going to bring them on the series. We have an amazing disciple group chat, also resources and community events. So we're going to let Ras tap in with us. Yeah. Loving the new do, Ras. What is good? Thank you for joining us this
Thanks for having me.
afternoon. Thank you for your amazing work at the Queens Museum of Moving Image. It was a blast. I had a blast seeing the youths them get it in. But before we get started, just want to hold space for you to introduce yourself as we are ever evolving beings. And I know you've probably metamorphosized a lot since the last time I saw you, as so much is transmogrifying. But I appreciate you. You know, the moment we met, we had such great convo and talk at that music school in Astoria, Queens. And I was like, wow, this is a very powerful soul. So I want to thank you. And please, please, please let the people know who you are, what you are, and what's on your heart and spirit. And we'll take it from there. Thank you for joining us again.
Oh, why? Thank you so much for having me. I have like so much love for you. Like,
Ah,
honestly, I was like, the
likewise.
moment I met you, I was like, this is a powerful individual. Holy shit.
Woo! Ah, we
No,
out here.
exactly. Hi everyone. My name is Rasheedat Badejo. I go by Ras Bad.
Mhm.
I am a multidisciplinary artist. I'm an educator. I'm a producer. I'm a creative midwife.
Woo!
Um, and I love that title. Honestly,
Yeah, yeah. That
I
was a new one. I've heard some, but that
right
was
like,
fire.
um, and I don't know. I love new work. I love working with youths. I like working with
Mhm.
people in general, just through developing their new work and even just being a springboard for people to bounce ideas off of.
Mhm.
I really do think there's like a lot of power in process. You know, we live in a society where we are so product oriented, but people
Woo.
forget that the product, you can't get to the product without a process, boo. And and the process is really where all that work is happening, where the initiations are happening. So I like that juicy, fertile ground. Yeah.
Eee. Well, we're definitely going to plant a lot of seeds in that soil right here. So we start off all these interviews with a creative expression definition of artivism. Artivism is a hybrid word of art and activism,
Yes.
but at Creative Expressions, we go under the vibe or come through the vibe, I should better say, of activism, meaning activating our organism to its highest potential so that we can overflow into community and into others without being sacrificial or suffering burnout. And of course, using art, which we believe everyone has a form of creative expression that they can use to activate their organisms to its highest potential. So I know you do a lot. You gave some amazing titles, but we want to put the floor to you on what is artivism to you? How do you express it? And maybe what might be your definition of it?
Ooh, okay. Artivism means a lot of things. Because I used to identify as an artist. I'm not gonna lie, I was like, I'm an artist, that's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
But now in my older age, I kind of have a better understanding of it, right? Because I used to be a martyr a
Mm,
lot, you know, trying to martyr as much as possible in my artwork. But in reality, that's not what artivism is,
mm,
right? It is like it is speaking from a place of your power, to be able to
mm,
activate power in others, and people do that through art, right? People do it through other ways, but I think specifically as an artist, it's like using your creative talents as a creator to help initiate other people into their creator, right?
mm.
So
I love
that's how I express.
that, Ross. That's so amazing. And when I met you, we talked a little bit about your history, your origin story, and what was going on with you. And I know you have a deep background. So just let us know how you got into creativity, because there were a lot of forms of creative expression. I was blessed to hear that story on our walk to the train. But let people know how you got into your forms of expression, because I know the well runneth deep, and you've gotten into so many puzzle pieces that create the version of you that is here in front of us today. So please let us know about your journey. It could be connected to art, or it could be about other things, anything that your spirit moves to. But take us along that timeline, and let us know how you got
For
here. You know.
sure. I think I honestly, I feel like I came out the woman artist. I ain't gonna hold you. Like,
Yeah.
I think I came out that way. Like, when I was a kid, my motto was like, I'm gonna be an actor, musician slash model. And then, like, I had a signature walk and all this stuff. Like, it was like, this is how I want to come into the world. But ultimately, the written word was my first love. Period. The written word, and then matched with music. And then I found theater, and I was like, oh wait, hold on, like, this is a different type of way to bring my discovery to the forefront. Fun fact, I was really on a track to be a nuclear chemist. That was a huge thing. Like, I love science. I love processes and figuring out like questions and experiments. And the older I got and the more deep into it I got, I realized that the easiest and the quickest way to really get to the heart of the matter is to use art. That makes the most sense, you know? And what better way than, in my opinion, theater, you know, that's my big one, to walk in another person's shoes, right? Because sometimes you have to take the role of someone else for other people to understand, for other people to see, right? And package these big radical ideas in a way that is digestible, right? I say, like, I like to make people laugh all the way to the point. So you're laughing, you're like, oh, that was a funny joke, and then, like, you're thinking, but actually, hold on, there's something inside of this. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know. I do have a degree in theater, and that's kind of how I found new work specifically, because I was an alien. I've always been an alien in that sense. People are like, Ras, we don't know what your type is. We don't know what box to put you in. And so, and even like a lot of the historical plays that were being put on, they still couldn't figure out like where I fit. And so I learned how to devise, you know, making theater out of nothing. I really honed my writing skills to be able to, like, no, we need to carve a path for other people, you know, like the historical ideas of what it means to be a Black person, what it means to be a queer person, like, or if there's any real representation of that in our historical canon, you know, I was like, oh, no, I understand. I'm not here to help revisit these stories. I'm here to make new ones. Understood. You know, so.
Wow. No, I love it. And I love how, even though you are multidisciplinary, you are connecting it to those themes. I didn't know about the nuclear physics, and that was fire. So it's ever expanding,
Yeah.
right? I know also you've now come to New York City, and you've been in a couple locations and places and spaces. I
Yeah.
did want to ask you about, what have you picked up from these different physical locations, and coming to a place like New York City, and also doing youth work, and you've done all these kind of gigs and jobs as artists do, right? So tell us a little bit about maybe the geography
Yeah.
and some of the experiences. Now that we know the what, how did this show up, and how did this journey bring you once again to put all these beautiful puzzle pieces together?
It's a great question. I mean, I guess I should say I'm from Kansas City, Missouri. So Midwest is best, baby.
Hey, they out here.
And so, yeah, like, especially as an educator, you know, that's how I'm really getting into community that way. I feel like the youth is like really a good litmus test as to what's actually happening, what's immediate. Because we tend to like downplay the youth. So, like, no, they know. They're so hyper aware of what is happening. It's just that we as adults have acquired this skill of masking, or just this skill of repackaging. Like, we tend to censor ourselves for survival, understandably so. But what I love about youth is that they're like, nah, no, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
So in Kansas City, like, yes, there is a different vibe. There is a different vibe from Midwest versus East Coast. I think what we think is provocative in the Midwest isn't as provocative, but like there's a little bit of overlap between the two. I think like the way we think about responsibility is also a little bit different. What we want to censor is different. That's but I don't know. I'm a radical in the sense that the ways in which I work with youth, regardless of where they're from, is I treat them as equal collaborators. Always. I'm extremely transparent about what's happening. You know, even when the organization doesn't want me to. Now. I think it's my role as an educator to empower, right? And that's by giving them knowledge and also trusting them that they know what to do with that knowledge, because they do. You know, so I don't know, like the last big piece I did in Kansas City was about death. And that was a scary idea, to have youths address, like adults, address the world about how they feel about death. What scares them, understanding that these are things that they are dealing with on a constant basis with school shootings and things of that nature, and empowering them to just be open and scare people, but understand through that fear, you know, we are faced with our humanity and the truths of the world that we live in that sense. And then here, you know, we're like in New York City, like, I want to clear up a misconception. Like, yes, I know New Yorkers are radical in a particular sense. They seem radical, you know, like, which is true, yes. However, kids are kind of the same all over the place at the root of it. Like, at the root, they just want to be heard. They want to be seen, you know, and they want a space to be able to share their ideas. So that does cause me, I do have to pivot, understanding that the cultural nuances are present. Oh, cute little kitty.
Yeah.
You know, even just in New York, borough by borough is different. You know, the Bronx versus Queens versus Brooklyn versus Manhattan versus Staten Island. Facts. You know, like that, like they're coming with their own different ancestral knowledge. They're coming with their own like stigmas that they're constantly coming into contact amongst each other. So that's also really interesting to see. But yeah, they're differences, but there are also major similarities. Yeah.
People are people. We are out here, and that's amazing. That's going to bring me to my next question, Raz. I know you've done a lot of work with youth, and as you said very eloquently just in your last statement, that youth are youth and they have that very raw uncensoredness, which is why I think multi-generational relationships are so important. What drew you to doing youth work and doing community-based work, which I know has been a big part of your journey? And, you know, it's so great to see you hold space for the youths and, you know, do those site visits you came to me with. And I know I'm someone who gets a lot of fuel in my fires from those works, and it inspires me to continue to radicalize and decolonize myself. So tell us about the connection to youth work, how it's inspiring you, how it's affected you, or even some stories you might have in doing such.
I think I can't help but think about, I am a big kid. I'm a big kid.
Yeah,
I'm a big kid.
Same here. You see the hearts, we out here. Yeah.
It keeps you young, you know, in that sense. Also, honestly, I just remember what it felt like being a kid and being censored and being like, you know, just like, oh no, that's too much. That's too much. You can't do that. And I'm like, why? And also having that feeling of that they are completely discounting the wisdom I come into this world with, right? Or like the wisdom that I'm here to impart upon people, regardless of what the age looks like. And the whole phrase, we are, you know, the user of the future. Then if we know that they're the future, why can't we feed that? Why can't we water that? Why can't we, you know, create spaces for them to develop on their own terms? So that's really what like drew me to youths. They're just, they got this fire. They got this fire, this know-how, and I don't want to extinguish that. Like yes, I love education. I really, really do. But I also understand the ways in which education is created and structured is built to kill that fire. It's built to force students to assimilate, to become slaves of the state instead of become sovereign leaders like they are. And so that was like my own little mini radical plan of like, I need to get into these schools. I need to see what's happening. And I need to be able to create structures and systems so that kids feel seen, that they feel understood, that they feel empowered to make decisions. Because honestly, it is not my business whether a kid wants to be an artist or not, right? That's their path, you know, whatever they want to do, whatever they're here to seed. However, I know the power of the arts and how that can empower students to make choices, to trust their intuition, to understand and draw the lines of boundaries for themselves. So that's all I want to do. empower
Wow.
kids.
Well,
So
you're doing it and you're doing a great job in my opinion. And I love how you come through with what I learned is the word facilitation to create space to allow what will naturally happen. That's going to bring me into my next question, which is you do a lot of work, I know currently with arts organizations in creating those spaces. And I want to veggie back up what you said just now about schools and institutions being systems of oppression that almost take the spark out of youth,
yeah,
right? When you are going into these places and spaces, and I know the organization you work, they work with hundreds literally of schools. How is that task for you? And how are you able to kind of, do that David and Goliath method of, someone who is just here, who has love for arts as an artist yourself, and as a creative, but goes against these institutions that are a lot of times indoctrinated, like you said. And how are you able to navigate that, and just give us some insight on doing that work, because that's not easy, and not everyone is called or can do that kind of work. So
right.
I
It
know there's
is.
some gems you got.
It is so difficult. It is so difficult. It is difficult. It is so difficult. Mostly like um especially because there are so many sites, right? There's so many schools. And there's also so little time that I get FaceTime with these teachers or FaceTime with these students. And so whenever I am on site, I try to connect as deeply and as quickly as I can with these students, right? Whether it is like assisting, because usually they don't expect me, when I go on a site visit, they don't expect me to assist. That's
Mm.
not the expectation,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I like to completely dismiss that expectation, right? Because a lot of the
Mm-hmm.
time on these site visits, these teachers, these soldiers out there trying to do the good work, they look at us like, oh, you're here to see if I'm good enough. Oh, you're here to,
Mm.
like it's a negative connotation. And at the very beginning, I always try to dismiss that entirely. Like, hi, I'm here to support. How can I support you? Like what are the things that I need to take back to HQ so they have a better understanding of what it's like on the field. Because like having been a teacher, I not having the support of an organization is terrible. It puts you literally between a rock and a hard place, you know. So it's definitely like that for me. And I learned very quickly. I'm like, oh, this is what's happening, and I immediately went, hi, these are the types of supports that they need. This is what needs to happen.
Wow.
This is how we can mobilize this. I know we don't have funding for X, Y, and Z, but how can we get creative so that we can be able to support them at a site level? Like,
Mm.
so
Yeah, that's real. That's real, Ross. And I'm so thankful that you take that approach as you visit these different spaces and places. I wanted to ask you a little bit about your creative expression. You know what I mean? I got to learn more about you just through our interactions. You came out to the Artivist Mixer and expressed yourself. And I know that you are constantly in a state of evolution with your practice and how you express yourself and which mediums and things you choose to. So let us know a little bit about just what's going on with you, or maybe there's a project that's on your heart or something. I know you collaborate with folks and you're doing things, so give us a little bit of insight into your artistic world and what you got going on right now.
yes, thank you. Like my world is constantly shifting and changing, and I used to fight against it. Now I'm like, no, no, no. I'm gonna just ride this wave. I'm gonna listen. Also understand that all of the creative projects that we all bring into existence have a consciousness outside of our own, right?
Woo!
And we are in
Bars.
collaboration with that consciousness, right? So, which is like,
Love that.
but it's true. I'm currently in so many things are happening. I'm launching my production company, Bad Banana Productions, at the end of the year. That's a
Congrats.
long time coming. A long time coming. And for a long time, I used to think it was a theater organization, and it's not. It's multidisciplinary because
Mhm.
even as my practice is changing, like I'm doing a lot of visual arts right now.
Mm.
And doing a lot of like textile work, a lot of weaving and things like that. Kind of taking it back to the diaspora in that sense, because my great
Mhm.
grandmother was a fabric trader. So like the relationships with fabric is like, it's really calling itself to me right now.
Mm.
I'm also in the process of writing my first web series, and it's called Black Sheep, and it's an ancestral story, kind of told through a modern lens, um, and it scares me a lot just because I usually have a tendency in my artwork and the plays that I write and the things I write sketches, I do one per people shows about historical figures, things of that nature. I tend to not put myself as Ras into the work outside of like the
Mm.
ways in which I craft things. And so this is like my first foray into being completely transparent about who I am, what my family life has been like, and
Mm.
the stories and the wisdoms that the traumas and things that I've experienced can actually like breathe life into other people.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's it's a lot, but I'm happy about it.
Yes. I love it. You're bringing so much energy to it. You tapped into a great point in what you just said about vulnerability and using that. And I like to use the word transmogrifying these things and also telling your
Yeah.
story, right? I'm seeing the thread in what you're doing. How are these stories coming up for you? And I love how you said, in you being able to embrace that, it becomes then an offering. And you said a huge bar, which is the art we create has a consciousness of its own that teaches us, right? A lot of times we think that we're doing this, but we just become antennas that receive this thing that is greater than us, which is a signal. So please dive into this about using that fear, getting out that comfort zone, because, a lot of times, sometimes there's a mental thought that, oh, we're going to transcend this, but it's always there. It's omnipresent. So talk to us about that vulnerability, that fear, and getting out of that comfort zone with these processes and this practice that is ever evolving, right? So yeah.
Yes. Um, uh, I'm like, where do I begin? Where do I start?
Mhm.
Um, like, I mean, like I said, my background is largely in theater, right?
Mm.
And I also realized in undergoing that original path of I need to be on Broadway. I need to do this. I need this is how it needs to work. This is the system. This is what I need to learn how to work this system.
Mm.
How that cut me off from a lot of other ways of creative expression.
Woo.
And so now I'm like, no, I'm dismissing this silo. I'm dismissing the need to be boxed in so that I can receive and transform and make outside of what people tell me I need to make. Right. And so, like this idea that I had for Black Sheep, I've had it for 4 years.
Mhm.
It's been cooking and I've been trying to make it a play. I'm like, well, this is what I know how to do. So I'm going to try and make it this way. And the idea is like, no, we're not that. We're not
Mm.
that. And you can try and force me to be one thing, but I promise you I'm not that. And I'm like, okay, I trust my ancestors. I trust my intuition. I trust that I have the ability to learn and develop and change and shift. So why not say yes? Right? I think as creators and artists, whenever we have an idea that scares us, sometimes we try to avoid. We try to like move around. We try to make it something else, because of the concept of success. Right? I've been successful in doing one thing, so therefore maybe that is all I can do. No, no, success can be a trap in that way, right? This fear
Mm.
of failure can be
Mm.
a trap in that way. And understanding that success will not allow you to expand and evolve in the ways of which the potential for failure can, right? Like failure is a portal. And so, though I am afraid, I am courageous enough and I believe and I trust that if the idea was given to me, then I have everything that it takes to manifest this idea. So it's a lot of self-confidence building, really, to say yes to transformation,
Mm.
right? So,
Wow. I love it, Roz. It's really about trusting the process. I took
yes.
away from what you said and allowing yourself to be malleable and to be molded into what it allows. And that brings up a great word that I've been telling myself recently, particularly in this month and last month, is to surrender, right? To allow
Mm-hmm.
so much of it. And I'm hearing this in your talk, right? We have these visions, we have these ideas. We train. You said, oh, I was gonna go for Broadway and do this, but then life has a way of lifing and just grabbing us and taking us to these unknown destinations. What would you say has allowed you to let go and surrender and, transcend what I would say the mind or the ego, as some might say, right? Because it does take that vulnerability. It does take allowing some ideas to just taper off or metamorph into something new, right? That we did not accept on the inception, almost like a child. You can have a child, but you can't make it be anything. It's going to be what it is, right? And I feel like artists, we are at that stage in our existence, and the world is at that stage where there is a lot of letting go involved more than obtaining or sticking to these rigid ways of the said past that, low key, were never working for us anyway. You know what I mean? They didn't used to work. We just were used to doing it. But please give us some insight into that, because I see you're a very brave soul and just taking that risk. Every time I see you, you come with a new energy, a new flavor. And as you know, sometimes that's discouraged and people feel like I have to stay focused on this one thing, or when it starts to not look like how they thought it was going to look when they were in the development stages, that can bring a person to put it down or crumble up the paper and say, oh, well, it didn't turn into the play, right? But maybe it was supposed to turn into a video, or,
Exactly.
to allow. So how do you give us some insight on how you've been able to surrender and allow in this?
I mean, to be completely honest, it's been a spiritual journey for me, right?
Mm,
I had to like disconnect from making art for a second and just kind of
mm,
like process, right? Because I realized that the ways the industries work right now, you're turned into a machine. You have to generate,
mm.
make, and you have to work at a particular speed that's not your own. And so taking the risk to be like, actually, I'm going to say no to any outside like theatrical situations, just to kind of listen, to be in stillness, to disconnect. It's so hard. It's so hard. It's so hard. But however, that sacrifice is worth it, right? It's so worth it, because then like the things that I heard in that silence, the things that like made themselves known to me in that silence, if I would have just ignored it and kept going and going and going, not only would I burn out to death, I burnt out twice before, two big major burnouts. I don't ever want to be there again,
Mm.
right? And so it's like listening to spirit in that way, like listening to my ancestors in that way, and understanding that they have toiled all of their lives for me not to toil like that. So I have to be brave enough to step outside of the box, be brave enough to venture out in ways of which they did not get the opportunity to. Um, but silence and stillness, is a tool that I feel like we as artists don't get to use a lot, especially now in the content creation age, where we want brand new information every single week. We want brand new, complete, fully fledged ideas day to day. It has to be done this way, edited in this way. I'm like, no, silence and stillness. So
Wow, Ras.
yeah,
That is such a big download and a needed message to be reinforced. I want to echo some of the things you just mentioned to just amplify them of we are not here to turn into a product and to start churning out in this ways. You also tapped into burnout, which has been a huge theme on a lot of these talks, because if you try to keep up with the Joneses of these external forces, it will literally extract your life force from you, regardless of what your field is. And that's no different from what happens to accountants, lawyers, and people
great.
who work certain jobs. And also just artists, right? Like, you also made a huge gem about artists being turned into content creation factories to fuel the system. So we're no different than people shoving coal into the furnace to do this. And that is a ever burning furnace, right? The furnace will just say, give me more, give me more. And then when artists are not doing it, someone else who may not be on that level of awareness, which is going to go into my next question, will just literally become the sacrificial artists or artists to these things.
Yeah.
And how are you able to, and how were you able, you spoke about those two burnouts. Yeah, give us some insight into those burnouts and how you were able to learn from them and transcend them, because I had a couple of those myself, and I know that like we go through it to be like, no, not
Right.
again, and we have to learn from it. So please give us some insight on those experiences and how you're able
Yeah.
now to transcend them, because I love how you stated very clearly, never again. I'm not falling down that. And you brought us to stillness and that awareness. So thank you again for that.
Oh yeah. Like the very first big burnout I had was at the beginning of my career, like a few seasons in, because they put into your mind, especially as like a marginalized artist, and I say marginalized, not like, you know,
Mhm.
because there's
Mhm.
so many different ways in which we're marginalized in this industry, that there can only be one. And if you say no, someone else will say yes. And then the opportunity might not come back again. So so it's built on scarcity. And so there was a point in my life where, especially as a freelance artist, if there was an empty slot on my calendar, I'd have a panic attack. I'd be like, oh, I'm not making money. I'm not providing. I'm not doing it. I'm not going to be able to survive. And this is like, and now you're just churning out ideas for the sake of like, I have to survive. And it was,
Mm.
so my big burnout happened. It was, I was an actor in Kansas City. I was booking gigs left and right, you know, gigs that people would kill for. And I was working. Once I was working, I was booked busy. I was working, working, working. You know, I had that
Mm.
badge of honor that I was like, I am, you know, I'm
Mhm.
working. However, there was no break between these two shows. And working children's theater is also another thing that people don't understand, is like a whole nother type of energy, ex- like expelling of energy. I was doing 12 shows a week. There was one show I had
Wow.
121 shows in
Whew.
that run, and then I had one day off to learn the next show that was going to run for 232 more shows. And I was like, I could do it. I could do it. I got this. Da, da, da. And I just felt like my brain was breaking down. I was emotionally breaking down. And I was like, this is not. Then I just kept thinking, oh, what are people going to think about me? What are they going to say about me? What are these things about me? You know, like, how can I'm not going to be able to do that. Like, you know, and my work was my pride, right? My work was my pride. You know, I'm a recovering workaholic. You know, my work was my
Mm.
pride.
Mhm.
And when I told you I was burnt the hell out, I was sizzled, I was fried, and I could not book a show for that next season. I could not. I would still go to these auditions. I can still do it, but I think they could
Mm.
smell it on me that this chick is fried the fuck. You don't have the stamina to do what we want to be able to be done. And I was like, you literally booked me for these two shows back to back, understanding that what you were asking of me was inhumane.
Mm.
So I sizzled so hard, and oh, it's so funny. I haven't really talked about that before. I've just been like, I burnt out. I went to the shadows. I came
Mm.
back, um, and then burning out again, like coming off of grad school and coming off of like doing all of these different projects, these different trying to hit these benchmarks. You know, like trying to get these A's, trying to do all this. I have to be my best all of the time. But no, I never took time to actually sit and ask, who's best? What does that look like? And like, what is my best? What can I do? What makes sense for me? Right? How can I show up to be the best version of myself? And what does no mean?
Mm.
You know, all of these big questions, because you're so used to being of service, right? So used to wanting to make other people happy, but not really considering what your own happiness looks like, what a full cup for you actually looks like and sounds like and feels like. Um, so yeah, those burnouts were a lot. But in this, that's also the thing. The body will tell you. The body gave me all of these signals, and I'd be like, oh, I'll just take a Red Bull. I'll keep going. Oh, I'll just keep doing this. You know, no. The way my body said, you're down for the count. You can't memorize
Mm.
shit. We're done.
Mm.
Okay.
Wow, Raz, that was so enlightening, and thank you for your vulnerability and reflection on it. And I want to reinforce that statement too. The awareness, right? A lot of times when the mind overtakes the body, I love how you were literally saying there was that part in your mind, the chatter, I've heard it called, that, oh no, you go for it, or oh, if I don't take this, you echoed a feeling of so many creatives. And you also mentioned that idea that if I don't take this, someone else go get this, or the bills are not going to get paid. And the real truth is you're more productive when you do less. And that's why I am also a recovering workaholic. And I tell everybody, I'm like, oh, you want to get it, you want to get the most done, and they're yeah, yeah, yeah. And I said, you have to do less. If you're doing 7, 10 things a day, bring it down to 3 and watch you get more done. And it almost feels counterintuitive, but when you experience doing things with more presence, I love how you said the body was like, I am memorizing Jack. I'm down for the count. So, you know, there was something in you that's like, nah, give me that. And like, we will literally work ourselves to death. And
Yes.
so many, you know, rest in peace, those who are with us. And you also spoke of something I want you to dive in. All of our conversations have had deep spiritual connotation. I'm glad that we were just two beings that were able to just go right to there through that and that guidance that is accessible to us all on those higher dimensions, on those higher consciousnesses. And I've heard you in this conversation right now just speak a lot on, you know, ancestral support, spiritual support, the divine guidance that is within us all. And that is also another reason to rest and take things slow so you can hear that. Because if you're doing a million things a day, the mind takes over and it's almost like you're not able to tune in. But when you're able to just stare at a tree or really be in those spaces, you know, you're able to tap into that. So I want you to kind of open that door to us about this, the spiritual side of your work and honoring space for the ancestors and that divine guidance that I know we've spoken on, you know, in the analog. But yeah, please bring some of that to this because I think it's very, very much needed and accessible for people that
Yes.
which we might not know, or some may feel like they have to keep looking outside, but there's it's a whole infinite well we can draw from
Oh,
within us.
absolutely. I mean, the first thing I want to say is that the body knows more than the mind, and people have to like surrender to the body, right? Even like when you're working out, right? You like your brain's like, oh, I'm doing too much. I'm doing too much. I promise, just turn your brain off and be like, all right, body, I'm following you. You tell me how far we can go, and the body be like, I got you, right? Because like people tend to forget that our relationship to our bodies, you know, like we are living and walking altars,
Mm,
period.
mm,
So we
mm,
have a
mm,
lot of divine knowledge in our muscles and in our blood, right? We just have to actually trust it, and we're taught not to. And like, oh, my body's dumb. My body doesn't know. Your body knows.
mm,
Your body knows. You know,
mm,
we are a soul inside of a vessel, and this vessel is conscious. So it knows, it picks up. Like if you feel like the gut reaction, like something's wrong, something is wrong. You might not know what it is. It'll come to you later, but something is wrong. um, but when it comes to like my ancestral work, I do have an altar that I sit at and I like nightly, you know, and I meditate quite a bit. My meditation process has shifted a lot since like lately, just because I'm in the process of learning Reiki and like being able to like, move that
mm,
energy, and so that has shifted the way I think about and practice in meditation. But meditation doesn't have to be just sitting in one place in a dark room, right? It doesn't have to be that. I meditate a lot when I'm working with my hands and doing like fabric work. I
mm,
meditate a lot when I'm walking, you know, even just in commute, just to like be open and also trust. Like that's also the big thing that has shifted. I'm learning to trust that little voice in my head. You know, the second an idea comes in, I learn to trust that it's mine and it's not a delusion, right? I feel like we're taught to second guess ourselves constantly. Um, and one big thing, like I was weaving, you know, I'll be weaving, you know. Um, I learned to not plan everything to the T. This is hard, right? Because we're taught that, like in project management, you have to have like, you know, you're heading towards something. But in reality, like I said, those ideas, these projects have their own consciousness, and they will tell you. They will tell you when it's right. They will tell you when it's done. They will tell you if there's a little bit more time needed to be able to bring this idea into the world. And it's learning to say no to the time loop or the timelines of everyone outside of you and saying yes to that internal clock, yes to that internal timeline that is being presented. Um, like like in planning my company, I was like, okay, these are all the things I need to do in this first year. I have to do I have to do this and this and da, 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 you know. And um, the ancestors were like, you need to take a break. One, you need to take a break. But if I take a break, but it's not gonna like. First of all, no one asked you. No one outside of you asked you to make this thing happen. So you're on your own timeline. Don't put yourself on a timeline that's unsustainable. I'm like, understood, understood, okay. And then in that time, you know, I had a period of hibernation in February into March where I wasn't hanging out with people. I was trying to be as to maintain my solitude as much as possible. And inside that solitude, it became very clear to me, I'm doing too much. Why am
mm,
I like these are habits that are infused into me to be able to produce as much as possible. You don't need to do that. But am I going to stay relevant? You are relevant just by being alive. Like, it's like questioning, like I don't make because other people want me to. I make because I feel driven to, right? Like, I need to make this thing. I can't explain it. I don't need to explain it. I need to make it, and it'll tell me how to make it. And trust that. So, and I think a lot of the times we as artists, we're forced to like create a structure or a template that we're supposed to fill. And same with the cost of production in that sense. But there are billions of people on this planet. That means there are billions of artists on this planet, right? And so if I'm not making right now, someone else has time to make. Someone else. This isn't a competition for the spotlight. We are in concert with each other. We are all different instruments in a large choir, right? And at one point in time, all the bass is gonna be quiet. And well, guess what? They're still playing music. So, that's how I try to think about it. I try not to pressure myself in that way. I try to put my making on a timeline, on a time schedule. I know that when it's time to accelerate, I will feel the acceleration. I'll say yes to it. If it's time to de-escalate, I'm gonna do that. And trust that I'm working in divine time. And my time doesn't have to look like anyone else's. So.
Ras, that is learned wisdom and experience that comes from, and so many things that you say I resonate with. I want to go here because I got you here, and we are breaking the construct of linear time even within this interview because it's moving at such an exponential rate. I did want to talk to you about these systems, right? In this transformational era, we are reimagining things that have not been seen yet. We are bringing the unknown into what is known, into this dimensions of, we are expanding the consciousness of this very earth through every single moment, right? Like you said, it is all on a bigger thing than us. I love how you talked about the body. I did want to get your thoughts on just these systems of oppression. We know like the schools that you mentioned, me and you had that conversation day one when we met, even in art environments are putting you on the schedule when by this semester you got to be able to do this or that, right? And it's so rigid and compartmentalized. As we are existing right here and now in the now, right? Do you think that these systems of oppressions will be formatted? Do you think that new things will start to emerge? What are your thoughts on these systems that have been like not open to that fluidity, that ancestral divine wisdom that we know is there? Do you think they will evolve into things, or do you think new things will come to take the place? What are your thoughts on a
I'm
lot of
thinking
these things that are not pushing them?
all of it's going to happen. I think there are going to be some structures and systems that are privy and understand the necessary to shift and change. I think the others that won't will die, and that's okay. That's in nature, I also think that we also have to acknowledge, as controversial as it might sound, these systems worked for a time. They just ain't working no more. Everything has a time signature of how long it's going to work. And we're coming to a really interesting point of transition where the ways that organizations are working, we're seeing it's not sustainable. They can lie to themselves all the way. It's gonna fall. There's gonna be no more funding for that. Like it's not gonna work anymore. And whether that means that if we're talking about art education, where schools pull out, we're not interested. And then that to me is a signal. But I'm also seeing new systems coming up, right? Which I think are really, really interesting. There's this organization that I work with called Superhero Clubhouse, and they're going through an organizational revamp where they're getting rid of the vertical power structure in the organization, and they're shifting it to an ecosystem, which I'm like, what? And so even the ways that I interact with this organization makes a lot more sense now because they're modeling it based off of live, thriving ecosystems. We understand what your role is in our organization. It's just as important as a part of this whole entity. And that to me is so exciting, So I think there are even other cool new systems that are sprouting up that we haven't even thought of yet. So I know the work's already happening. It's already in motion. And before you know it, we're gonna oh wait, it's a new world.
Yeah. Wow, Raz. That was so needed. And thank you. I want to echo once again some of the amazing statements that you just made about it's evolve or
Die.
die, which the death is still part of nature. You know, we don't got the dodo birds anymore. We're missing certain species of plants and things because they no longer were here. And nature has a natural, divine, ordered filtration process. And I love how you said some things are choosing to evolve and say, hey, we're going to go into a new infrastructure that we haven't seen. I love how you use the example of a linear model to a circular based ecosystem, which reminds me of the recycling symbol EMBL, where everything is just continuing to feed each other in an ever expanding figure eight of newness. You also did mention that certain things just need to just fall out and go
Yep.
because and that will happen on its own. I know a lot of people put personal pressure to make we have to do, but this nature, the tree doesn't ask anyone to water it, but yet
Right.
it grows. It doesn't, it just happens. And I think we are realizing that we are that nature and we are constantly just evolving. And I want to echo that other statement you made through your very existence, through the fact that you are a breathing, living entity with a soul and you're here. That is enough. And
Yeah.
I feel like in the old way, once again, people wore those badges of honor. I am the theater director of
Exactly.
Broadway, or I am the first string chair violinist in the orchestra pit, right? And this notion of that egoic way, and I love how you said it did have an essence and purpose for a time, but in this time, this is no longer needed. Everyone is a star in the
Right.
galaxy, and now we're starting to get rid of these models of these superiority things to make the playing field level. And that's why I do these talks. I made them simple after figuring out that as long as we can hold space for people to share their ideas, the right things will happen. And we create structure, but that structure is there to be malleable and to be bent and moved and molded. I did want to give you, as we're starting to slowly wind down on this interview, just like what's on your heart and spirit, or if there's anything you want to speak on that might be a project or that, or it could just be something in your being that you know has been an occurrence or brought to your consciousness awareness in at this moment of whatever's on your heart. Just want to hold space for you to freely express on those kind of things as we're here, because I love how you speak, I love what you do, and once again it's in solidarity where we're doing this together.
Right.
And yeah, so much wisdom in this. I can't wait to listen back to it too and get some more nuggets out of it. Yeah.
I'm like, thank you. I mean, first of all, just thank you for like inviting me to do this and giving me the space to have a conversation with y'all. Like, that makes me feel really happy and seen in that
Mm.
particular sense. So thank you for seeing me.
Yeah, big love.
Um, I think the big thing I want to say in this moment is that I want to keep bringing back to the forefront that we're all artists, right?
Mhm.
All of us, even if we're not actively making art, um, that we all have we are literally creators by existing. Um, and we don't need gatekeepers to validate our existence. Um, and also understand that these gatekeepers actually need us more than we need them. Um, we literally make the culture, and all they do is take the culture that we make and profit off of it, and they give you the smallest cent possible. So you have to remind yourself of your value, that every single person's extremely valuable, um, and perfection isn't real.
Mm.
You know, it's not. I'm a recovering perfectionist. It's not real. I don't know what I was doing. And actually, perfectionism is a huge barrier to good art, in my opinion.
Mhm.
So, good art's messy,
Ooh,
just like life.
I
Um,
love that, Roz. Wow, Roz, you dropping so many gems that
um,
I love it. I love it. We also want to hold space for you to do some of your creative expression. I wrap it up. I'm going to grab the giddy and do a little jam on it. But before we get into that, if there's a piece you want to do, a poem or sing something or share something, because I know you got a lot in the stash, you know, or even just continue to just speak freely on what's your mind. We do want to hold this within this last 10 minutes, you know, an ability for you to, if you choose, you know, like no, never any pressure, like we say, but we know that you do have a lot and you're here, and you know, whatever you feel that you want to express in this moment, you know, or even just tell us about something if it's a project. I know you got some things in the
Yeah.
pipeline, you know, just, but
Oh
we
my
do want to
God.
hold space for your art, you
Thank
know. So
you.
yeah, you know, I see you. I'm out here, you know,
I know you.
yeah, we out here. So like I do want to make sure that's here for you because even though in interviews we're breaking all these paradigms and we're bringing the music into here, we're bringing it all, we're bringing the writing, we're bringing whatever it is we got, it's all welcomed, and you are welcome as you are, totally, you
Thank
know.
you.
And yeah, just please, whatever you feel like sharing,
I'm
your
like, oh my
offering is
God.
welcome. Yeah.
Um, okay. I'm like, I think I have a poem somewhere that I could totally read.
Yes.
But while I'm searching for that, because I'm like, oh my God,
Yeah.
um, like while I'm searching for that, um, I really want to press uh, one of the new offerings that my organization that I'm working on to being able to offer is called Bad Labs.
Mhm.
And Bad Labs is an opportunity for artists to meet audiences at their artist, right? The whole goal of this event is to change the ways in which artists view audience and vice versa, and also understanding that the relationship that artists have to audience cannot be a um, a draining one, right? It's like audiences come to consume. And don't get me wrong, there's so much art out there that people can just consume mindlessly.
Mm.
However, when it's live arts, that's not what this is about. This is a conversation. This is a cyclical feed of energy. And so Bad Labs, the structure that I'm working with, it's also very malleable because, you know, each artist has their own process, is where an artist will show a work in progress. Um, they have the option for feedback if that's what they want. It's not necessary, or
Mhm.
because, you know, I also understand that as an artist, sometimes I don't need to hear what you got to say. I've learned a lot just by doing, right? So it's a space for doing. And then post all of that, the artist has the opportunity to lead an initiation, right?
Mhm.
It could be as simple as this is how I make art, and now you're going to put on my process. And so audiences have that opportunity. It could be something completely different. You know, it's the goal is not mastery of a form. The goal is strictly experimentation. And I feel like audiences will be able to understand and value artists more when they're also put in a position to create or be an artist themselves without the fear of perfection, but the fear of it looking a
Mhm.
particular way. So that's something I'm piloting next year, and I'm really excited to be able to bring that to fruition and see how that changes too, just in process.
We're
Um,
here for it, love.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. And as you get your piece ready, I just want to once again re-echo that this is an ever-changing process. Raz is speaking about breaking the walls because too many audience members in the capitalist matrix is passive consumer. And there's a clear divide between the stage and the crowd. And everyone by human existence, by your very nature of that, is a creative. You are an artist. And that's something that we want to keep on echoing. This is what we say in the youth work that we do. We remind them. And also, I love what Roz said about perfectionism being an illusion. There is no such thing. Art is also a perception. So you show the same art to 10 people, you got 10 different pieces just by the
Exactly.
nature, because each person who's observing the art and taking it in literally through their ability and their being is processing that. That's why, you know, as simple as you can look at a painting and ask people, what does the painting say to you? And 10 people will give you 10 different answers and no one is wrong.
Right.
So thank you, Ross, for just echoing those things that need to be said. And I know I needed to hear those reinforced in me. But are you feeling ready to share your piece?
Yeah, I
Got
got a piece I could share.
you. Yeah, do it, do it. I'll start to grab this, get a little background for you as it organically
Yes.
happens. But thank you. Wow, this went by like grease
It
lightning
really
this hour, you know.
did.
But I thank you for just your work and your nobility and your vulnerability and sharing with you your lovely, amazing insights. I feel so enriched to have this with you. So without further ado, we're gonna hear a piece by the legendary Ras Bad. Look out for Bad Banana coming out with some of that new heat
Exactly.
incubating for artists. Exclusive right here, Artivist Talks. We got something coming up, Raz. Take it away. I'm just goofing right now, having some fun with you. But yeah, go ahead.
All right. So this is a poem called "It's About Time." I'll just go in.
Go ahead.
It's about time I show myself. I'm concerned my skin isn't thick enough. This mask runs deep. But to be bad is to be free, and perfection is a noose. I must admit that I've become accustomed to shallow breathing. Can't get enough air. I don't deserve the space. Intrusive, malicious, fictitious, do the dishes and find the
Ross, did something hit mute? I think we might have lost you.
oh,
We got you? There you go.
hello.
There you go.
Yes.
We lost you at the fictitious.
Oh, let's go. Okay. So, intrusive, malicious, fictitious. Do the dishes, find the spoons, and dig yourself free. One scoop of paper mache flesh at a time. Small bites, big flavor. It is a heavy endeavor, an exercise in loss, grief, decomposition. A gnarly, nasty admission with skin falling off the bone. To be this exposed, this visible, vulnerability is a feat. We all want to be seen until it's time to be seen. I want to be seen. It's time to be seen. No one is stopping me. Fear is stopping me. Profession's twin entity, gripping me, holding me, scolding me. This mask singes my skin. Hello, old friend. We meet again. But it's about time I show myself. Burns, bruises, and blood. I beat myself up enough. I'm my own biggest adversary. What a peculiar weight to carry. Enough is enough. Once stone cold, now tender. Release the mask. Please surrender. That's the only way through. You can't white knuckle, belt buckle, embarrassed chuckle your way through. Not this time. No. I must dissolve. I must rise and allow the decomposers to recompose and arrange and play the song I'm too chicken to sing. Because it's about time I show myself and all the gifts my ancestors left behind. With reason and rhyme, I trip over them every time on the way to my mask. These obstacles are loud. These obstacles are sharp. These same obstacles are all myself. The abandoned, the injured, the patient, the knowing. A seed in the soiled growing. A new cycle, a fresh scab. Being myself isn't so bad. It's rekindling, rediscovering, returning, relearning, releasing of the unserving, stitching myself back together one intention at a time. Because it's about time I show myself.
Ross, wow. Do you have a title for this piece?
It's about time.
Ooh. Well, it is about time, right on divine time. Wow. Ooh, I just want to take a nice breath for that and immense gratitude for you spending this power hour. You could be anywhere, but you chose to be here. I'm gonna add a little something to close us off, Raz, but you
Yeah.
gave me so much. I feel nourished from your words, from your energy. I could feel your spirit all the way from the rivers over here and the waters and the skies. So I will start with no disguise and let my mind go. She said, don't burn out. I had to let go. The same thoughts I had to echo. And even in the summertime, I could feel snow. I trust the process. See lost, found a monster inside the Loch Ness. The Loch Ness, she just cut her hair. I let it go. I make mistakes, but it's okay. These little rascals is okay. We did it all. Rest in peace to OJ. I still think he didn't do it. I had to influence. Maybe I'm against the grain. I accept the pain, but life doesn't have to be a strain. There's always something to gain if you get out of the mainframe of the mainstream. And no, it's not about counting these lima beans and dollar greens, but abundance is a natural theme that occurs. Ras got away with the words. That's that bad banana looking like a plantain. We're going to break it down for every seed that we are planting. And sometimes we're talking like some lunatics, but those be the ones that know. Those be the seeds that grow. They try to bury us and let us know it's not about obtaining, it's more about letting go. Ras had to be the star of the show. It's about a minute. I don't want to let them go, but I know that I am permanently here. So whether laughing or shedding a tear, this is our moment ahead. We got a buzz for a light year, taught by the youth, not to execute, but to introduce and allow thoughts to induce us into things that we could never know. I'll say it again. It's not about obtaining, it's about letting go. Thank you, Ras. I want to be mindful of your time
Thank you.
and your energy.
Why?
Last thing is, please let anybody know. We tag you in this. We're going to put it on YouTube, but please let anyone know where they could find out about you, about Bad Banana Productions coming soon, and just leave us off with that on where people can literally get in touch with you or anything else is just final words. I am so privileged and honored to be in your presence in the analog several times and in the digital. Let's keep on working. When you get that stuff up, please send it to us so we can make you a community partner. And as your events come in, please, we will host you on the community event page and add you to our Decipher group chat and lock you in, and we'll make sure that this interview is accessible so everyone can find a bit of themselves within it. But thank you, Ras. I'm beaming with joy and gratitude. I had to bring back those light beams. So take us home with any final thoughts and any information on where people can keep in touch with you,
Sure.
etc. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you so much. Why? You're so generous. I just want everyone to understand how generous this individual is, like constantly giving. And I just want to acknowledge that. It's a lot of labor, right? So I want to tell you, I see you, and I so much love, right? Like,
we out here, we outside. Even when we inside, we
exactly.
outside.
Well, I mean, I'm on the grams, so
Yeah, yeah, we got it.
I was like,
Roger's
hi,
tagged on this, so you can
exactly.
get her
I'm on the
IG
gram.
right here on this very first live.
So you can definitely find me here. Websites are in process, so those are going to be released soon. I have a Substack. You can find it rasbadejo.substack.com. That's all I'm talking about is like perfectionism, all those things, but also like the ups and downs of what it means to create a new, different company in this time. What that asks of me, right, and the transformation that I'm currently under. So if you're interested, holler over there. Yeah. Thank you.
Right. So I want to be mindful of your time. Thank you for putting overtime, 3 minutes. We out here. And like you said, we're beyond these constructs and we allow these things to go. So I want to allow you to have a beautiful rest of your day and give thanks. We will be in touch. And of course, if there's anything you ever need that calls you to reach out to my being or the whole creative expression fam, we'll put you in the Decipher chat with your consent to get some more resources. You'll meet some more amazing folks and just know that we are in support of all you do and all you are. And we want to see you keep evolving and growing. And just know with amazing love and respect, we wish everybody a beautiful day and know that all your moments are here. A couple quick highlights I want to say about Raz's conversation is it's inside, y'all. Look within and you're never going to be without. Less is more. It's the great school of jazz, Do less, trust the process. Look inside. Get out of your comfort zone and get out of your way. No need to be a perfectionist. Just be and show up as you are. You are seen, heard, and loved. This is Creative Expression signing off with Artivist Talk numero 18 with the legendary Ras Bad of Bad Banana Productions. Stay in tune. Tell a friend, tell a mundo, or tell yourself a look in the mirror. Peace, love, and unity. We will be in touch. Thank you,
Thank
Ras.
you.
Hit me up if you
Bye.
need anything. Love and
Always.
respect and unity.